I get a lot of questions about how I got the four-wheel steering to work in the Vitara. So I was just going to go over real quick on how I did it. It's really simple. I think maybe it's viewed as something a little more complicated than it actually is. It's just a little bit of wire harnesses and really not much more than that. I'm pulling the top off of this so I can get to where I've put my receiver, just so I can show what's going on here a little bit better. I'm not going to disassemble the truck. It's pretty easy. It's not really hard to understand. So basically what's going on here is you have to replicate the front end in the rear. That includes C-hubs, knuckles, linkages, your universals or your dog bone cup and sleeve setup, whatever you need to get the rear end moving like the front does. You need to remove the lockouts and put your chubs and knuckles on there. Make sure you get your linkage in there, servo, mounting plate, all that, everything you need to do steering. Like, imagine this was a front end. This would need to be set up the same way. This actually came off of another mini rock crawler that I had, so it was a pretty easy switch for me. If you don't have another mini rock crawler, you would have to order all of the individual parts. That would mean servo plate, servo horn, linkages for the servo and for the steering, hub, C-hubs, knuckles, whatever your joint is in your rod that goes to the diff. You need that in order to make it actually move. Of course, your wheels and tires, you already have those. Like I said before, anything you need to make the steering work. So once you got that done, you have two servo leads, one coming from the rear and one coming from the front. The front's going to stay normal, but the rear needs to be reversed. In my particular instance, with this servo, it is already in a reverse position to the front, so I do not need to do any reversing on it. It automatically is turning the right way. We're not looking for crab steer, which is where both wheels would turn this way and kind of give the truck a little angle. This is a simple four-wheel steering setup, so all we'll be able to do is in and out configurations, which is more than enough to get you in and out of most situations. There are multiple ways to complicate this and get your dig set up and all that, but this is just, as I said before, a simple four-wheel steering setup. It's highly beneficial to have these back wheels moving. It's going to get you out of more than just regular steering. We'll have, if you want to explore getting into independent front and rear steering, that's great. That's something I don't do at this point, because just the regular four-wheel steering is more than sufficient and much better than the original steering. So anyway, back to the servo. You need to be able to reverse it somehow. If it's not reversed already, I know, like, if you use a high-tech digital servo, High-Tech also sells a servo programmer that can reverse the servos. My hobby shop has one and they do it for me when I need it. Or you can buy one of these servo reversers. I got this from a hobby shop out of Florida. I also did a video on it. This is from MPI. It's a digital servo reverser. It has a small amount of trim on there. This is under $10 and you can get that shipped. And you put that in line from servo to receiver and it'll reverse the rear servo. So once you have your rear end servo installed, you want to take a, trying to pull it out here. This is just a, you can barely see it here, but this is a Y splitter, a simple Y harness that I plugged into the receiver. This Y harness takes input from the rear servo and the front servo and combines them into the steering channel. That's why you need to do separate reversing of the rear channel, because your radio's not going to be capable of, your radio may be capable of reversing the rear channel independently, but that's not the route that we're exploring here. We're doing a simple setup which turns both wheels at the same time, and to do that you use a Y connector and plug into the steering input on the receiver. And that's basically it. I know I kind of wish there was more to say about it, but there's really not. It's just putting the parts on the rear end and reversing the rear servo and running the Y splitter to the steering channel on your receiver. The Y splitter is available at most hobby shops and it'll run in the $10 neighborhood or less, depending on what brand and what length you get. They have several sizes. I have a 6-inch in here, which is way too big, so I've got it a little zip tied up. That's why I can't get it out so easily. But it's really not necessary. Like I said, it's just a simple Y splitter that combines the output from the receiver and goes out to each servo. This lets your steering turn at the same time with all 4 wheels. As I said before, this will help you get out of a lot of obstacles that you wouldn't be able to get out of with the stock setup. This is definitely not as good as the independent 4-wheel steering setup, but it works and works well. It's very simple and pretty effortless to set up. Get yourself in the jam, you kind of wiggle that rear end and it's going to kind of pop itself out, as opposed to just spinning like normal. So that's how I set up rear steering in my Vatera Slick Rock.